Emmy-nominated voice actor Eric Bauza, local boy.
Yeah.
From
just beyond these walls. Born right outside the bush of Florence Street Avenue.
Oh yeah?
Street? No. I was trying to think. St. Michael's? St. Joseph's. I was born in St. Joseph's. But I spent like the first year of my life on Jameson Avenue.
So you are like a downtown kid?
Yeah.
Really? It's just over here?
Yeah. Still got my baby Kevlar vest. Just in case.
It's gotten a little better.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
We're watching it gentrify as it goes.
I'll have to pay Jameson Avenue a visit. But I grew up mainly in Scarborough. Okay. Which now the Kevlar vest comes in handy more often. I don't know if it protects you from knives though.
All the good neighborhoods.
Yeah. No dissing Scarborough. I love Scarborough.
I
got all my fingers still. I'm still alive. My heart's beating.
Okay.
I brought you guys Timbits. Mm-hmm. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah. You can
Will they come after us?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Because I don't know if you noticed, my hat has been. They call it Greeked. On set. I used to work on set, like set dressing and stuff like that before I got into voiceover.
Yeah.
But they'll Greek it, which means they'll make it look like if there's like a license plate, they'll take duct tape and cleverly hide letters and logos and stuff.
Yeah, it's, we went through this a little bit before the cameras were rolling. That like,
if you're wondering what the hell's on my hat.
Yeah, I got practice last year covering up particularly sports team logos. So that's why Eric this year Eric's going to have the duct tape treatment today.
Just finish the job and tape my entire face.
Because God forbid we should not wear our hats. You know. You have a full head of hair under there.
This is a hat country, okay? Canada's known for their hats.
So I'm going to try to keep this on track.
It's not going to happen with me here. You're going to have a hell of a time editing this.
So growing up, what kind of aspirations did you have?
Well, I always loved animation and cartoons as a kid. Grade 8. I say grade 8 because that's how you say it in Canada. 8th grade is American.
Oh, that's the American way?
I remember like the first thing that I grew up in Scarborough and love watching cartoons, Mr. Dress Up and all those after school programs in grade 8, and people in America are like, grade 8? Don't you mean 8th grade? Yeah, I grew up just loving cartoons like Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers, Disney, primarily Tom and Jerry, Flintstones, Yogi Bear, Jetsons, Warner Brothers, of course, Looney Tunes, even the 90s stuff like Animaniacs and Freakazoid.
Sure.
It kind of still trips me out that I get to work with the people that I grew up watching, and I constantly remind them of how old they are by telling them that. But they're a big part of why I do what I do, is like I learned from watching. That's always been my thing. I never went to school for acting. Past high school, I went to Centennial College for broadcasting. So actually, if you want me to help you edit this, I can. I'm the only interview that offers editing help.
But you drew. But was the voice thing always in your back pocket? Was the voice thing was that a thing you wanted?
I think so. I think a lot of animators, a lot of cartoonists are essentially actors because they perform through their drawings. And I think there's a handful that actually make it through the hoop of fire of, I want to do voices in something, or like I was always the guy around the studio of like the many smaller studios that I worked with that they knew that I liked to do voices, so they would often ask me to do scratch dialogue.
Yeah.
And that is temporary dialogue for those watching that don't know. And it's free. That's the best part about it, is that it's free. So not only was I free, but I was pretty good. So they would actually, the one that actually got through to series was El Tigre. That actually started out as me, just doing scratch dialogue for Jorge Gutierrez, who directed Book of Life, and his wife Sandra Ikiwa were very instrumental on me being an official American voice actor. Most of my voice career has been spent in the US and not here. There's only a handful of projects that I've done. Only last year, in over 15 years, was the first time I recorded in Toronto, which was so trippy for me. Atomic Puppet.
Yeah.
And that was a Canadian co-production and France co-production with Disney XD, Mercury Filmworks, and Gaumont Animation. So, but yeah, it all started kind of just with my passion for animation, and it never went away. It was always my college, one of my college professors was, it was time for us to choose our third year placement. Where do you want to be for your internship? And I noticed on the intranet back then that they were advertising for internships at a studio called Spumco, which was the birthplace of Ren and Stimpy. And they were kind of staffing up to do a new series, John K's first series since Ren and Stimpy, called The Ripping Friends. Okay. Another Canadian co-production. But the tricky part was that the internship location was in Los Angeles. And I pitched that to my teacher, and he was like, "It's nice to dream."
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's nice to have dreams and aspire to do ridiculous things. And he was very hard-edged, you know, he was a no BS kind of guy. But he was like, "Why don't you just pick an internship here in Toronto?" And I was like, "Screw you, I'm going to Los Angeles."
Well, that's it. Like, if you're gonna, when you're at that age and that point in your career, that's when you take those kinds of risks.
Yeah. I mean,
you pack up and you go.
Yeah. Luckily for me, I had an aunt and an uncle out there.
Okay.
They never had kids, and they allowed me to crash on their couch for 6 months to a year while I did my third-year internship there. Essentially, that's also what brought me back to the U.S. was all the friends that I made at that internship eventually started working at Warner Brothers and Disney and Nickelodeon, and I started meeting people on my illegal visits. I can't do. You couldn't do that now. You couldn't be
okay, but so you were Centennial here. You were always a cartoon guy in terms of where your heart was at, but you kind of didn't know where you were going to end up in terms of. But it was kids media. You were aiming for just media in general.
Yeah, it was kind of like, okay, the internship called for production assisting, and as you know, entry level. You're scrubbing toilets at Spumco.
But I want to know what the adventure is in terms of getting that internship. So
literally a cold call.
Yeah,
I called them up, and at that time, the studio producer, like the main EP there, was Kevin Coldy. And I don't know if you've ever had to talk or deal or work with Kevin, but he's now at Frederator and is actually responsible for the latest version of Castlevania, which is going to be huge. Okay, these vampires, they're great. All right, they murder vampires. It's hilarious. Very, very, very good animation. He doesn't actually. Kevin kind of talks like this. When I called, I was like, oh my God, I think I called like a mob boss or something. Like I was like, "Hello, Spumco. Yeah, we make cartoons." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to do an internship there, and I'll do it for free." He's like, "You start tomorrow." Like they're like,
it's kind of how it works there, right?
They snapped me up.
If you show up, you're
Pretty much. I showed up in the middle of August in California from Toronto with a full suit, like pants and a blazer.
You're trying to impress?
A friggin' briefcase. They're like, the guy during the interview had like shorts and flip-flops on, and I felt like a Mormon pushing Bibles.
You got dressed up?
Yeah, I got dressed up.
That's hilarious.
People were like, "What the hell? It's a traveling dentist or something."
So who did you meet with when you got there?
I met with Ken Boyer, an animation producer at the time, and out of the corner of my eye, caught a glimpse of John K. walking by, like with like 6-pack of Diet Cokes and Gatorades, and it was like seeing Bigfoot, like, you know, like the classic footage of Bigfoot walking, because I'd never seen him in person.
Yeah.
And you know, he's a Canadian hero for animation. So I was like, oh my God, it's the guy that made Ren and Stimpy. Hopefully I get a job here and try to impress him enough. My idea was I could do voices on his shows if I scrub enough toilets. And sure enough, it worked. But yeah, it was kind of just like scanning storyboards, answering phones, making sure everyone was cool, had all the supplies, and eventually I would kind of like nudge my audio cassette demo reel that I cut at Centennial, like, and leave it on the desk of John K. or whatever the producer was working on that day, and eventually I'd find it like shoved to the side. Like, no.
Just pull it back up, put it back on top.
Nice try. How about get me some more Diet Cokes? Yeah. So
if you're manning the phones though, you can hit the intercom anytime.
Yeah. Well, I used to do impressions and voices for the guys, and I think that they thought it was funny. But and they knew that I was capable. It was just, you know, it was just a matter of like trust, building the trust and all that stuff. So, but yeah.
So you do this for how many months?
That was about almost a year. I actually turned 21 in Los Angeles.
You were down there for almost a year?
Yeah, doing an internship. Almost a year. I think I may have stayed longer than they couldn't get rid of me.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. But, so your uncle and aunt's couch got quite a dent in it.
Yeah. A big sweaty dent. Gross.
These are very good people.
I had quarters stuck to my back. It was disgusting, and lint.
So, and this was on Ripping Friends,
Yes.
which they were also producing in Ottawa.
In Ottawa and in Toronto. So Cambium was the producers of Sharon Lois and Brem, for all of you. CanCon. The CanCon meter just went up. They were producing it partly here. So I worked, after the show had wrapped, I continued to work in the accounting department at Cambium, which was so unusual. Really? Yeah, I mean, I was like, I need to work. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I can't just be a voice actor magically. Yeah. You have to build towards that, I guess, and be an accountant at Cambium. And then I was actually working at Funbag Animation in Ottawa. Yeah. Do they still exist?
No.
They don't exist?
No.
Okay, we can.
That's okay. Ottawa's known for that kind of thing.
Okay, cool. Sorry, Funbag. Sorry, ex-Funbaggers.
I don't think it had anything to do with you. I think you're all right.
That bastard sabotaged our operation.
Bauza.
Yeah, he did photocopies too good, too well. But yeah, and I met people like Steve Stefanelli, Jose Poo, Helder Mendonca, like a lot of Nick Cross, Christy Gordon, so many amazing Canadian artists that are still there. Phil LaFrance, Jeff Amy, holy smokes. There were a lot of really good, talented people that I worked with. And Graham Lunam, friends that I will forever be friends with. Yeah. And have seen.
Ottawa's got a nice, tight group of people.
They certainly do.
I was over at PIP when that was, because PIP did the ink and paint on that.
They did.
And I left PIP around the same. That was around when my daughter was born. Yeah, I was at PIP, and I left around when that happened. When that came in, my daughter was born. And I remember them talking about managing personalities involved in that production.
This is your show. You can totally spill the beans. I'm going to interview you now. So what did you hear?
No, because when you're doing the ink and paint and the compositing, you're the last guy in the row in the line, right? It piles up there.
It really does.
Yeah.
There's a giant pile.
But I do know that John was really happy with the people at PIP.
Yeah.
Like there were a couple of compositors there who really pulled off some miracles for him, and he worked really closely with them.
Yep.
Like as we all know, he's a very hands-on dude. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. I always thought that Ripping Friends was an interesting experiment.
Yes.
Because it was not a pipeline that's built the way he makes cartoons.
Right. I feel like that's always been I don't want to start with saying the downfall of the studio, but the fact that he'll have to, and he's no stranger to it, he'll have to retrain everyone, and that kind of takes up production time. That for me has always been like the learning curve, and it's always been like what kind of sets him back as far as getting the thing done on time, because he's always trying to like retrain people to work his way, which I think it does work, and he's pulled off some really amazing things since then. But I feel like
there have been delivery issues.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's fair to say.
Oh, I was there. One of the craziest things that I had to do on the we did when reboots weren't really reboots. It was kind of like, and there was no Adult Swim yet. We did this adult version of Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, so the Ren and Stimpy relaunch was actually.
I'm sorry.
No, but it was, but it was kind of a big deal. So like, it's okay to talk about this and get into this kind of shit, because certainly in Ottawa, I mean, we did a lot of service work in Ottawa for Nelvana. Like I worked on I don't know how many seasons of Franklin the Turtle, and a lot of this kind of really dry kids programming that we kind of felt like we were suffering from a certain amount.
Sure.
Funbag always seemed to get like a season of something cool.
Okay.
The original Ren and Stimpy they did work on. Simpsons they did a season on that.
Nice.
In some capacity, I don't remember exactly what it was. I did a few things for them, but not a lot. And then when this deal was going down to have Ripping Friends come through town, because I remember like I don't even know when I was in school at Concordia, some old cartoon magazine that had all those designs, that all those.
I believe it was Wild Cartoon Kingdom?
Yes, it was. Yes. I think I still have it somewhere.
Yeah. And I got mine signed. That was my last paycheck, was just sign my stuff.
Just sign it all?
You can't pay me, just sign it,
just
so I can sell it somewhere. Yeah.
Of course there was, yeah. Anyhow, we'll touch on that after. But yeah, and I immediately, and I was a superhero guy, and the thing that sparked for me was the Warner Brothers Batman show.
Yes.
And there was there was a lot of cross-pollination between the talents involved in that and the stuff involved with John. And
the Bruce Timm style.
Yeah. And so when Ripping Friends finally hit Ottawa, there was this sense of like, okay, this is amazing. At the same time, this is an experiment.
Yeah.
Because the Canadian pipeline system is, I mean, John has knocked it a lot over the years. In terms of what we make, we're known for kind of mediocre animation, those kinds of things. And John is so hands-on and all under one roof and
different too.
Cartooning.
Like, and it's very, every frame of that, of any show that he wants to work on, he wants to make sure that it looks different from the last frame. And that it's more organic and live. And
that's contrary to the pipeline.
Right. Because at the time, like you said, there were mainly like a lot of children's programming, and it can be very mundane.
We didn't make a lot of cartoons. We made a lot of animated programming. We didn't make a lot of cartoons.
Sure. I feel like that's changed now. I feel like if you were to bring Ripping Friends or a new Ren and Stimpy around now, and try to, because I think the most cartoony of all the shows that was being produced in Canada was Clone High at the time.
Yeah, probably.
Like back then, at least as far as like American style sensibility. Yeah. And I always thought that was great. I thought that was great for Canada. But now, like, I see things like Bravest Warriors is being produced in Toronto.
That's over at Nelvana.
And I just feel like the style and the mentality has changed so much here. For the better, like
it's evolved totally. I mean, like, I've always said this whole thing of it. I mean, we're known as one of the largest, in fact, the largest producer of animated content in the world. And there's a distinction that you kind of make within all that is that yes, we make a ton of animated content. We make some cartoons. Yeah. Because it is a really specific thing.
It is.
And I'm speaking to somebody who really understands that.
I was the studio therapist at Spunko. I will go public about that. I was the guy that.
But anybody who comes through that, I mean, like, the Ripping Friends was a big deal in that respect. And I remember people, and I remember Jose really trying to chew on that and get it and figure it out and learn.
Oh, man.
And that was the thing. Like John, you would learn so much from him. Yeah. You wouldn't make any money because you're getting paid by the piece, and getting anything approved was difficult.
It was hard. It was hard.
But that was that felt like a wrestling match.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was the referee at most times because I was the guy. Like again, he knew that I wanted to get into voiceover. And he was kind enough to let me do like a handful of voices on Ripping Friends. That was my first exposure to being in the booth and actually seeing.
So was that your first, those were your first gigs?
I did the voice of a tooth filling, and I did the voice of Future Cat, which was, there's an episode called The Man from Next Thursday, and it was all about time travel. And I played Future Cat, which is loosely based off of, I don't know if you know this website called cartoonbrew.com. You're holding in.
I may have come across it.
You're holding in laughs or vomit. I don't know. It depends on what you. But there is a guy that runs it, whose name is Amid, who actually worked with at Spunko. He was like one of the production managers. Yeah. But I loosely based the voice of Future Cat. It was John's idea. He's like, "Oh, why don't you just imitate Amid for Future Cat?" So if you watch that back, that was kind of like my offbeat impression of.
I'll have to go back and check it out.
Of Amid, he was kind of this cat. He pooped telepathically from across the room. That's kind of like how I made the cat sound.
So John thought it was hilarious, but I'm sure the hate mail is piling up in my inbox. All from Amid, just Amid. Yeah,
he can hear it. Yeah, he can sense it happening right now.
He has like Google Alert attached to his in his cerebral cortex. I mean that was the first exposure to voices, and there were
a couple other guys though who ended up like I think was it like Michael Kerr.
Mike Kerr, yeah, he was like one of.
He got to be one of the Ripping Friends.
Yeah, he was Chunk. He was Chunk Nugget, which was awesome because he had such a unique quality, like a beefy kind of. He sounded like a guy that like was he was a mountain of a man. He was like 8 feet tall, but he was also like a really good friend, the son of a good friend of John's, like way back, and was always inspired by John to do cartoons and get into writing and storyboarding, and just so happened to be naturally funny. And I thought that was an excellent choice for that character. And then there was we had Mark Daly, R.I.P. Mark Daly from City TV. He was Crag. And I believe for some time Harvey Atkin was he's the Leon.
Right.
He's the Leon's guy. He was also Crag. They kind of like split the role. And Merwin Mondesir, another Toronto actor, and Mike McDonald, stand-up comedian, was Rip. So, and I was Future Cat, the cat that pooped from across the room into a litter box. And the rest, they say, is Hollywood history.
Brilliant start.
Yeah.
You can see the future right there.
I was like, man, I don't have to work another day of my life. That's it. I'm set. Yeah. Oh wait, we don't make residuals in Canada? I guess I'm moving to America.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
That's the other part of it right there. You're the first person I've actually had in here who was part of that whole sort of Spumco thing that happened in Ottawa.
What else do you want to know?
And, well, that's it. Like, it's tempting just to kind of go down that rabbit hole.
Wait till I write my book. You're going to have so much fun. It's so crazy. There's so much crazy stuff that I saw. I can't get it out of my brain. But I can't tell you here. This is going to be an 8-part episode of Startoons. I hope you don't mind editing.
Yeah, I've thought about, like, should we do some therapy?
We're doing it right now.
Get a group of people around just to kind of shake it off.
I visited Ottawa like about a year and a half ago, like the first time I'd seen all those guys in the same room.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. Like there was a lot of like late nights. And I think that's what I miss most about working in the animation like community is the camaraderie and is like, you know, starting late, ending late, you know, parties on Fridays at John's, you know, you'd buy beer for the whole studio and Labatt 50s everywhere.
Oh, was it 50 every
Gross,
time?
yeah.
See, I had a newborn. So what happened to me in all
At that time, during that time period?
Yeah, so I didn't go work at Spunk. I had a meeting with John. I did a couple of layouts, and they were terrible. But he takes the time.
Sure.
You know, he goes through it all, and layout is not his strong suit. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for him to tell you what he wants.
Yeah.
In layout. But yeah, like I mean, like I went to his because it was before they had the studio. This is when so then Ren and Stimpy started up. Ren and Stimpy, and they were then so this was monumental for Ottawa animators. That Ren and Stimpy was going to happen in Ottawa. John was starting a proper studio in Ottawa because I think the other stuff all happened out of Fun Bag.
Because it was all like influence on the Canadian, like we can do it in Canada. We could cut the budgets, make it cheaper. So they kind of took it north. There was like one episode, Fire Dogs 2, that was produced in the Burbank studio. Okay. But everything else, I believe, was done mainly in Canada, in Ontario. So
they bought like a haunted house out in the suburbs.
Oh my God, yes. It was actually quite nice up there, but it definitely, I work late nights there, and it was like, after watching Blair Witch, I would be like at my desk at 1 in the morning, and I could hear like children laughing outside my window, and I was like, "Oh my God, what the hell's happening?" But
I couldn't work there because I had to make a living.
Damn it!
Like that's really what it came down to.
You just had to be a dad, didn't you?
Yeah, that's basically what it came down to. Is that like it was the biggest education that the Ottawa animation scene had in decades. Sure. Working with John, and everyone always says like he learns as much from people working with him as they learn from him. Yeah. But like waiting on getting something approved, and when you're getting paid that way.
See, I feel like I worked on it, and it's a beautiful looking show. I think, you know, writing wise, it could have helped that he had like some of the old guys on board. And I feel like that's the reason why the original Ren and Stimpy's, the first season and a half to season 2 even, will always be what it was, like amazing, because it was like a group of same age, like-minded individuals that had so much gripe with the industry that they're like, we're gonna make something for us, and they totally did. They made Ren and Stimpy. Like the world had never seen anything like it, and style-wise, humor-wise, like Billy West comedy, like. You know, like it had everything. And I feel like every version of Spumco, even like before the new Ren and Stimpy's and Ripping Friends and the web cartoons for that matter, George Liquor show on icebox.com. Yeah. Like it was always kind of like a student-teacher situation where, you know, the students were almost wrong all the time, and the teacher, you know, at least with the original Ren and Stimpy crew, there was challenge, and there were equally talented people. But I see what he does. You know, he attracts artists that want to learn. Yeah. And they do learn, even at the cost of like the production. It's almost like getting paid to be at school, which is kind of nice if you're getting started and you're like meeting one of your heroes.
Well,
it's one of those things where we definitely all learned, and it was what it was. It was not like. It was almost like working on a Fruity Pebbles commercial. You know, it's like, it's not going to be the same as the original Flintstones, but you have to do it.
Yeah, you get to play with those toys. You get to be a part of that history of that show. And the episodes that came out of that were really interesting.
Here's the thing. This is what I always equate it to as well. It's like, okay, so we're living in a world post Jackass. So we've seen Steve-O fart in a tube into someone's face. That's a human. That's for real. Like, so why would we need to see it in animation again?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, in the 90s, like, Ren and Stimpy was the gross out, like, Beavis and Butthead, you know, and The Simpsons. Like,
You can go back to old Simpsons, and that was scandalous.
Yeah.
Like, there were letter writing campaigns, and now it's gentle.
Oh yeah, for sure. You put your babies to sleep with that stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like at that time it was like, okay, like this is animated for adults, like kind of, but it's gonna attract kids.
Yeah.
Like kids love The Simpsons. I love The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And Ren and Stimpy. But what was that? 2003, 2004 was Adult Party Cartoon, I think.
Yeah.
And that was like
earlier, because my kid was born in 2001.
Yeah, there was no outlet for adult animation ever, anywhere at that time.
Yeah.
And even the channel that they chose to put it on, which by the way was what? It was the Nashville Network, then it was TNN, then it was the new TNN, and it was Spike TV.
And throughout all those incarnations, they always played Groundhog Day.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. What do men want? They want 9 hours of Star Trek: The Next Generation reruns, Gay Ren and Stimpy, Stripperella, which was Pamela Anderson's cartoon, and then Gary the Rat, which was Kelsey Grammer's cartoon.
Right.
So
and eventually a lot of UFC.
Yeah, eventually. But they're still around. Spike TV's still there, and I say I have a strong influence on why it's still there. It's because we worked on the funeral of Ren and Stimpy. No, I'm just kidding.
But Ren and Stimpy was also a big break for you.
Yes. Again, at the time, I was still making photocopies. I was editing animatics too, which was super fun because I loved the original music that they used, which was from the KPM and APM libraries. They still use some of those music cues on SpongeBob. But it's all like the classic 1950s, like, the music stings every time they cut to like an ugly painting of an armpit or something, and like sound effects that John would make. He would blend like really weird, like classic Hanna-Barbera sounds together with a fart or something. And it was always fun to like, okay, here's a scene and go nuts. And I would be sitting there for hours, like, Mozart working on like, like a cacophony of burps and weird stuff. But again, I was always like, I'm still around for voices, and John would be like, that's great, but you're still going to be a production manager. I don't want you to do voices at all. He kind of kept that carrot dangling in front of me. What a jerk. But eventually I got to do the voice of Stimpy. As a diehard fan, originally, it was John Kay and Billy West, and that was always Ren and Stimpy to me. And when the news of this new series was being, it's coming back, I was like, I wonder, is Billy going to come back to do the show?
Well, so let's go back in the history of that a little bit first, because originally, John in the first iteration of the show, John was Ren, Billy was Stimpy, and then eventually, but there was a split, because John, through the production of the original Ren and Stimpy, John, it's one of those notorious stories.
It's a famous story
that John was ousted from his own show. So Billy took over both roles.
I believe so. Yes, I think there was an audition call, and I think because he had done 99.9% of the voices on the show aside from Ren. I guess, through the magic of auditioning, like he was the closest one.
Yeah, because
so
he slid into the Ren role too.
Part of the show, yeah. And from an artist point of view and a voice actor point of view now, and having worked with both of them, it's a tough decision to make. It's like you're either going to give up everything or you want to keep working on something.
Yeah.
And I can see why Billy did what he did. And
so let's cut to 10 years later or 15 years later, whatever it was when the
So they're working on the show, and I think the call did go out to Billy, and I think he was happily working on Futurama and being the red M&M, that's all you really need. That's Ferrari money.
Yeah.
And I think that he had his time with Ren and Stimpy, and he's very vocal about, that didn't really interest him. So again, cut to me making.
So there's a void.
I was using what they called a fax machine. I was sending faxes still with my demo reel on cassette. Kids, look it up, an audio cassette. They had them in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, it's that
Those
thing
have made a comeback. Yeah,
it's with tapes.
You can get them as phone
Yeah. Do you remember the Sony Walkmans with like mega bass? You could like hear a song and then like really boost the bass with the switch.
Yeah, they have good headphones though. The ones that came with it were not that great.
It was a miracle. But I had expressed interest in just doing any voice, not just Stimpy's, but just anything. And it was kind of like, no, you're a production manager.
So how far did they progress before they had a Stimpy?
So they had 2 rounds. I love telling this story. They had 2 rounds of auditions already. They had an actor in, and he didn't work out. And then there was a point where, John was like, I know, why don't we make Stimpy mute? He's not going to talk at all.
He was just fucking with you.
I was like, okay. So he's.
Wait a minute, how many scripts have you got written at this point?
Yeah. Stimpy will just be ... That's the only thing he'll say. I just thought it was strange. And then I was like, look, man, your plan A, B, and C have now failed. I'm editing the shit out of these animatics, and I'm loving it. But why don't I'll just try. And he's like, okay, fine. He finally gave in. And my audition ended up being the first episode of the cartoon. We started recording the first 3 lines, and then there really wasn't much dialogue in like a lot of these. It was very like action-based and, visual gag oriented. But yeah. I had a chance to voice probably one of my favorite cartoon characters, and I will always equate it to what Billy West probably felt like when he was voicing Bugs Bunny for Space Jam. For me, it's like Mel Blanc will always be Bugs Bunny, and also for me, Billy West will always be Stimpy. He doesn't look back; he looks forward. Billy West, he really is a journeyman. He just rolls with the punches and has had so much success, and is a legend. He's a legend. And I will always be thankful for that opportunity, no matter what.
That's huge.
For street cred on working on other people's projects, other animators, to know that they had the bad Stimpy on their show. I will always be other Stimpy.
They had other Stimpy.
Yeah. And the influences were all there.
You did a great job.
What my saving grace was, John's voice had changed so much. Like his voice got so gravelly.
Right.
And they actually even sped him up back in the 90s, like they do with
Did they really?
Yeah, like Daffy Duck is actually Sylvester, but played like a jerk.
Yeah.
Like Sylvester's like more sloppy and more hungry. Daffy, of course, is just driven by, he's insane and he's greedy. But with Ren's voice, they actually sped him up, and even with that kind of device at that version of Ren and Stimpy, it wasn't enough to get the gravel out of his voice.
Really?
So people were kind of more distracted with how John's voice changed rather than my knockoff Larry Fine.
Which, it's still the same. Hey, Ren, happy, joy.
Yeah, it was kind of like, taken from the same source material.
Yeah.
Again, I will always be thankful for that opportunity.
Was there a moment like when you first, when you saw the episode, or there was like when you heard your voice come out of that mouth?
Yeah. Or whatever Stimpy has.
Yeah.
Those skin folds. Yeah, it was surreal, to say the least. It was like, all right. I was like, all right, I don't have to work ever again. I'm Stimpy now. It's like, no. Canceled. Canceled after like 4 episodes.
Yeah. I think they made like 9. And John was like working at his own house with Jose.
Yeah,
to
no,
try to finish
I was
them
there.
off.
I told you, I was.
Right, through? You were there right through?
I was animatics and the butler. I was
Probably.
I was animatics. I answered phones and the pool boy. Gross. Again, you kind of like are faced with: do you want to meet your hero, or do you want to steer clear and have the illusion stay intact? I was like, screw it,
Just go for it, right? Ride the roller coaster.
I want to know every detail.
Yeah, ride the roller coaster right through to its bitter end. Yeah, because I was only peripherally aware at that point. So like I was hearing all the stories, but I was like at home taking care of my kid.
I was the guy playing the cello on the Titanic. I was like, down with the ship.
But it really
Captain.
did end up like out of John's basement by the end of it.
Yes. I mean, like, I know Jose was working on a Honda commercial at the time too, like after that had wrapped. And then I found myself in Ottawa just like not working on anything animation. I was like, I'm collecting employment insurance. I'm moving back to Toronto. I'm moving back with my mom and dad.
Okay, so you've had this experience now working in production, and you've got a taste of some real voice acting work.
So I'm finally bitter, is what you're saying.
Okay. Right.
I was like so gung-ho and like, yes, and now I'm like...
So really it's around the 3, because it's always around the 3-year mark, right?
Yeah, I was like, F this. I was like, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. because that was a lot of time. I was living in Ottawa for almost 2 years. I survived 2 Ottawa winters. I'm telling you, like if you sneezed, it would freeze in midair and then crumble on the ground like snot ice cubes.
Yeah, Toronto's a holiday as far as I'm concerned. Come in here.
Salty pants, that's all you have to deal with. Yeah. There it was like the whole city got shut down so many times.
It's brutal.
But I eventually made it back to Toronto and not having any leads for work. And then I got a call from my good buddy, Matt Danner, who I don't know if you've ever worked or heard of Matt. He does like a lot of development stuff for Disney TVA, Disney Interactive. Okay. And he was like, yeah, man, come on over. Come on over.
Back in LA?
I cut a hole in the fence for you. Yeah, you can crawl right through. Trump's not president yet. He doesn't care who walks through these borders.
Yeah, it was just George Bush back then.
Yeah.
Like he was nothing.
Yeah. What's that over there?
We thought he was scary.
Yeah.
But we had no idea what was to come.
He was hilarious. Will Ferrell was the best president.
Yes.
Of all the presidents. No, I eventually went back and started working at an animation studio called 6 Point Harness.
Yep.
And that's actually where I was just hired on as a character layout artist. Like posing
really?
Yeah, I was posing characters from storyboard. I was boarding things and again doing animatics, doing voices for pilots that, never saw the light of day or made it through and got canceled. But that's probably one of the, Spump Goes where I learned a lot of the do's and the don'ts of animation. But I also made some great friends. And at 6 Point Harness, they really, really were supportive in me being just there. I was their first Canadian intern.
Okay.
Under the TN work visa.
Trade NAFTA, let me tell you, it's horrible, terrible people.
I had a trade NAFTA visa, and they started hiring so many Canadians after me. I was the first Canadian there.
Broke the seal.
And it's been a nonstop, endless talent pool ever since. At that time, the best thing towards my end of my layout career was I was working on episodes of El Tigre. Yeah. I would go to Nickelodeon, voice the character, drive back into Hollywood, and animate my character. I would always make sure White Pantera had the best scenes. Like if you ever watched that show back, it was really trippy having to have that opportunity, and I couldn't have done it at any other studio. And then I started working, doing voices for studios like Titmouse. Yeah. I did voices on Super Jail, which I thought was like one of my favorite.
It was the craziest thing to ever come along.
I'm getting a thumbs up back there. I'm getting a thumbs up.
I did the voice of Lord Stingray,
which was like a really bad Cobra Commander ripoff. Chris Latta, R.I.P. But Titmouse has always been like supportive in like just I don't know. These animation studios love Canadians, so if there's any young Canadian voice actors out there, specifically Filipino from Scarborough, you have a chance.
It's a very clear career path that you've set.
I was able to drive here and bring 40 Timbits to the crew here, and But it's just it's like a big Katamari ball of a career that I've had. It's like I just keep rolling over shit and just sucking things up. And
so, what point did it tip over into you're a voice actor?
Oh man, I was working on a show called Good Vibes, which was a show that they paired up with the return of Beavis and Butthead. Right. And it was done by Brad Abelson, an amazing, super talented animator on The Simpsons. But at that time in my brain capacity as an artist, I felt like doing character layout, I was the guy that got the taco and put the lettuce in it and passed it to the other guy. Mm-hmm. And my brain was just like snapped, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, I can't draw. So I just quit having no leads. I quit not having anything. Like El Tigre had kind of come and gone. I always kept making the mistake of, I'll never have to work again. I'm on one show.
This is a refrain for you?
Yeah. El Tigre, screw you guys. I'm going home. Yeah, I really quit everything and just focused on being a voice actor. And that's kind of the kind of pressure that you need, I think, to make you start booking things. Mm-hmm. I got on Joaquim DeSantos' version of G.I. Joe Resolute. And that was like a very exclusive, 4-episode, it was like straight to DVD, but they aired it on Adult Swim. I got to play Destro, Storm Shadow, and Tunnel Rat from Hasbro's attempt at a 14+ G.I. Joe. Like there was blood animated. And Joaquin, as you know, he was responsible for Avatar: The Last Earthbender. He was a director on that. He's currently directing Voltron for
his name's on everything.
Everything action-based, and he's great. And he gave me a shot. You know, it's jobs like that kind of you just have to be good. I walked into a room with Gray Delisle, Griffin, Steve Bloom, Charlie Adler. These are all people that are so notorious for being able to do cartoon voices, but also really deliver action, serious acting.
Because that's really tricky. I mean, I've had a taste of we don't get a lot of straight action in Canada.
Okay.
You know, we're mostly a flash industry, so it's not that kind of it's not really conducive to it all that well. And people get sick of hearing me talk about it, but I got to do some Captain Canuck.
Yes.
And we were blessed with an amazing voice cast on that. But they weren't animation actors.
Right.
And I mean, our Mr. Gold, our Paul Amos, Paul in real life has got a certain Jack Sparrow quality to him in the first place. Yeah. And he can kill that. Like I had no direction at all.
Nice.
You know, 10 takes, I don't know which one to use because they're all amazing. Yeah. Chris Holden Reed, who was our Captain Canuck, he had the tougher job in that Canuck has to land in a really, really specific place. Mm-hmm. But it's getting these sort of because you get a lot of people who work as cartoon actors who you've got to get the non-cartoon people to kind of ham it up a little bit. Yeah. But you've got to get the other guys to come down so far for that stuff. And sometimes they just don't have realistic deliveries in them. I've seen it happen where like you just like it still sounds
crazy.
Cartoony.
I feel like that's how I learned to shift into, where I am now. I still would much rather prefer doing, Marvin the Martian in an episode of something, because to me that's like, watching that first Michael Jordan, Marvin the Martian, Jordan shoe commercial. That's what I love that stuff. Don't get me wrong. I love stepping in to do any Warner Brothers DC straight to DVD, straight to Blu-ray like production, and they will give me a chance to be, Gotham City's favorite character, which is Homeless Man number 3. I'm always the one that gets hung over the side of the building. See, I'm good.
A lot of those. Yeah.
I'm really good at vocally sounding like I shit my pants. But
at this point, you just have a tape of those. You send them.
Put that in my folder, my pants shitting folder, please. I just have a 7-minute reel of Batman.
Pick the one you like.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I still get called in to do more serious stuff. But I prefer to do the cartoony stuff. Yeah. But I get what you're saying. There is a specific talent pool. I feel like now a lot of people from video games and anime are making the transition over to mainstream. Yeah. And I think it's great. It's good for competition, and I feel like they're really nice folks. One in specific, Kari Wahlgren, she has done so much stuff over like the past 2 years. And I met her working on more cartoony stuff. Mm-hmm. And now she's just like, doesn't matter what it is, she's just plugged in there, and I think it's nice.
It's amazing if you can do both, but I always find it's interesting to see that there are some people that like they're either this or they're this.
Yes, yeah. I feel like you can get comfortable. You can get very comfortable, but it's always nice to challenge yourself, and I feel like that's what keeps things going sharp. I don't often book commercials, and I'll tell you why. Because if I'm sitting in my car and I hear, "Hey, you like burgers?" Like that guy, I just want to punch my radio in the face. If my radio had a neck, I would choke it. I turn it off, and I'm like, that's why I don't book commercials, because I can't. God bless the people that make it sound like awesome, but that's not me. Yeah. Recently, I booked a commercial where I was the voiceover for John Stamos for Spectrum Cable in the United States, which was for me hilarious because I thought, okay, as a voiceover guy, I'll just show up to the audio studio in my pajamas and work for 30 minutes to an hour, and go home and have a Timbit, and that's about it. But no, the director was like, no, you have to be there on set. I'm like, why? And they're like, because you have to read with John Stamos for 8 hours today. And I was like, oh, fine. I guess I'll hang out with John Stamos.
Oh, sounds so terrible.
It's
Uncle Jesse, come on.
Well, I was like, if you stand us beside each other, I'm like before and he's after. Like it was like a really confidence booster there.
There are a handful of human beings, him and Rob Lowe.
Yeah. You could throw a tomato at their face and it would just slice in half because of how pointed they are and sharp and handsome they are. But he ended up being such a super nice guy and a huge Disney fanatic, apparently.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like,
well, I know they used to always, on the show, they would always go and
they would go
always
there.
at Disney World,
But he grew
Disneyland.
up. He grew up in Orange County, like by Disneyland in Anaheim.
Right.
So the whole premise of the commercial is that he's a regular guy. But no, he's not. He's John Stamos. He's spectacular. And John Stamos is spectacular. And so will you be if you get Spectrum. So it was kind of like, oh, like the cable company. They're hilarious. And so he's walking throughout his mansion and my voice is just following him everywhere. But between takes, he'd just, grab a seat and be like, hey, Bauza, right? Your name's Bauza? What are you, do you like Disney? You like Disney cartoons? I was like, yeah, I love them. And he's like, yeah, what's your favorite Disney cartoon? It's like, well, I liked, actually, Aladdin was pretty awesome when I was a kid growing up.
Right.
And was like one of the first examples of like how to use a celebrity in a role, which was Robin Williams.
Yeah.
They drew the character just like him. He just acted like Robin Williams and it was awesome.
Yeah, a lot of that just happened in the booth.
Yeah. And I was like, and I didn't know that he just started going off on all these, like, one of his favorite Disney movies is Up. He loved the movie Up. Like, that's the first thing he mentioned. I was like, they still haven't paid me for using my likeness as the kid in Up, like Russell. And he was like, get the hell out. I was like, no, I'm just fucking with you. He was just like, he was like, what? You're Russell? No. I did all the motion capture.
There's a passing resemblance.
I was wearing a Boy Scout outfit at the time. It was very weird. But it's just the interesting people that you'll meet when you work in the voiceover industry and how it's now become such a...
So you're getting Christmas cards from him now?
Oh, yeah. 3 a.m. texts from John Stamos. No, not really. Not really.
Okay, so let's see. So let's list them off. Let's give us some characters. Give us the names because you've done a lot of stuff the last couple of years. Like it's been really cool to watch. I mean, we've known each other for a number of years. I mean, peripherally at first. I remember you being a guy walking by at Spunko, and I remember hearing that guy who was carrying around photocopies is now voicing Stimpy.
Weird.
And then LA, but it's really been the last 5 years really.
7. About 7 years.
It's a bit of a blur.
7 year. What year is it? I have to check my calendar. But it was like Fairly Odd Parents after El Tigre.
And I voiced Foop, the evil fairy baby.
Which was almost very... The idea of an evil baby at the time, too, was very similar to Stewie.
Yeah.
And Butch Hartman and Seth MacFarlane worked together on Johnny Bravo. And I feel like every time they were very cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
One is now the king of primetime animation. The other one's the king of children's animation. And I feel like anytime Butch had pitched that character, it would almost often sound very similar to Stewie. So they just said, well, let's just get someone in to kind of like carry that role so it's not like directly like an offshoot of that character.
Right. Find someone who can do their own thing with it.
Yeah. And I mean, anytime you do an evil character, they almost...
eventually end up sounding British,
like just because it's nice to be evil.
You fall
into
those places.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard not to.
Yeah. So then there was that. More guest spots on different shows. Breadwinners, which was I played
Badoosh, a bread delivering duck on Nickelodeon. Cancelled.
And then there was Ninja Turtles. I voiced Tiger Claw again. Every Asian character in Hollywood is now me. Sorry, I take claim over all of these. Yeah, just sounds like Mojo Jojo's grandfather.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun because every person wants to voice a turtle or an iconic character, but I was given the chance to voice an original character on what is now known as somewhat of a successful version of the show. That it is really my dream as a voiceover artist that in 5-10 years from now, someone else can do that.
Right.
I want there to be like 8 other versions of that character
that I started.
That you started.
Yeah.
Someone else can take over for you.
Yeah. I can kind of talk about it now that it's out in the atmosphere and the internet. There's a new version of Ducktales coming out. I got to play Gizmo Duck for Ducktales Remastered. Way Forward did this really, really awesome reboot of the video game from NES. Okay. They actually just hand animated every character, and I was one of the lucky few to come back to voice Gizmo Duck for the late Hamilton Camp, who's no longer with us. But blather and blatherskite, I was Gizmo Duck, and you know, it looked like hockey gear would come out of nowhere and just like slap on this duck and turn him into RoboCop essentially. But for this version, they really did stack the cast with some very A-list talent. Kate McCucci's on it, Beck Bennett, Bobby Moynihan, Ben Schwartz, Danny Pudi, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah, some really funny people.
And I'm one of the lucky non-celebrities to voice all the Beagle Boys. So I will be doing all of the Beagle Boys.
That's awesome.
All 28 of them.
Yeah, I was gonna, how many are there?
I can't really specify, but I do the main 3.
Okay.
And there may or may not be an episode where there's just a ton of them. And I was like, I saw the script and I was like, are you serious? Like, I was like highlighting every time I talked. I was like, you should have just printed it out on like all yellow paper. Yeah, I was like, this is insane. But look forward to that.
That's very cool, man.
And I may be breaking NDA here, but
you can tell us whether we can use this or not.
Yeah, who cares? No one cares about me. Disney has bought everything.
Yes.
They own me and you watching. They also own Muppets, and they've made announcements about them bringing back Muppet Babies. So I will be, because you gotta have Muppet Babies. Because I feel like a lot of kids don't really know who Kermit the Frog is,
right?
And it's kind of sad.
I mean, to see where he came from.
Yeah, because we were introduced to him on Sesame Street, which is not coincidentally. I only have
Sheila noticed the shirt as well when you came in the door.
I only have the nerdiest shirts. I only have shirts that attract other men. It's my goal, is to have other men go, hey man, nice shirt. You want to get wings or something? But I will be voicing Fozzie.
Ah, waka waka, baby Fuzzy. Kermit's where's Nanny?
Yeah, I'll be voicing my hero, Frank Oz. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We've been recording like a couple of them now, and it's not hand-drawn like the original, but it will be, there's an image of it online. It's CG, and it looks like actual puppets.
Okay. So give me some high, like where.
Okay,
What's a highlight for you?
There's stuff that I'm
what are the big moments?
Yeah, there's stuff that I'm leaving out, but not on purpose. For me, again, major influences in animation for voiceover. You know, June Foray, Dawes Butler, Don Messick, Billy West, Tara Strong, Frank Welker, living legend. But
Frank
of course,
Welker, which one is? So give me some. I mean, like.
Frank Welker? Okay, so there's IMDb and like Frank Welker. There's Frank Welker and the rest of IMDb. Yeah. Frank Welker is the voice of Freddie Jones from Scooby-Doo, most notoriously famous for. He is now the voice of Scooby-Doo. He has voiced everything that, Hanna-Barbera has ever had, creature noises, any kind of noise. You could tell him to do the voice of like a flock of Canadian geese flying by, and he'll say what time of year and where on the planet, and he's that specific. But these are people that I've worked with and have been influenced by, but mainly Mel Blanc, of course, as we all know, is the man of 1,000 voices and pretty much all the Looney Tunes. So I've held the voice of Marvin, and that's just by luck, because they always have open auditions for the legacy characters at Warner's. But I've done Marvin the Martian's voice for at least like the last 5 years. For commercials, for TV shows, feature film tests, and that's always been like one of my favorite. He's the best golf club cover at Golf Town, that's for sure. He's only in like 5 Looney Tunes shorts, but he is the most marketable, character.
And they were memorable shorts. Like when
Duck Dodgers.
Yeah. So when you're a little
Daredevil hair,
a little guy.
Yeah.
The space ones.
I'm still a little guy.
They were few and far between, though. The space was not something that they did a lot of.
No, like sci-fi.
So when they did it, it was amazing.
It was hilarious.
Those ones would like totally because you'd come off watching Rocket Robin Hood, and all of a sudden there would be like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, a Daffy Duck cartoon with they went to Mars.
Yeah. Rocket Robin Hood, by the way, look it up. I recently voiced Pepe Le Pew for a Converse commercial, which is basically my French Canadian accent. They pussycat. Yeah, I mean it was again, Mel Blanc is he's the hallmark for those characters, but knowing that they were willing to give me the keys to the Cadillac and take that car out for a spin around the block was awesome. So
nice. That's got to be a huge thrill.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't have that in Canada.
It's coming.
We don't have legacy that way, you know.
They did Baby Looney Tunes in Vancouver, so that was kind of cool. I mean,
yeah, a high point for the industry, I'm sure.
I mean, still, like it went there, and not anywhere else. So.
But in terms of like, I mean, it's like, I mean, we have. I find it's interesting. We are starting to build our own kind of mythology and our own kind of.
I think so.
You know, here in Canada, we're settling into like there are notions of what might have been our animation golden age.
Well, there were so many times where, because I was living in the States, I would go back and forth between here and Canada, visiting and all that stuff, and I'd turn the TV on, and I would see more Canadian cartoons in the States.
Oh yeah, we've got a ton for sure.
So many. Yeah.
But again, it's like when you're looking to those legendary names and voice, like Mel Blanc is Mel Blanc.
Yeah.
You know, those things are part of our wallpaper as much as they're part of the American wallpaper. Yeah. And to get to do that, that's pretty badass.
Well, Tara Strong, Maurice LaMarche, Cree Summer, they're all Canadian icons.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope to be somewhere in between them and the Leon's guy. I don't know. Harvey Atkin. I love that.
You're doing all right.
Yeah.
You're doing all right. You're working as a voice actor in LA, man.
Again, I brought 40 Timbits to an interview. When's the last time any one of your guests did that? Probably never.
True. You do seem to be buttering us up for something. I don't know what you could possibly get out of us, but you know.
I'm just going to take one of the boxes home. I was really just aiming to bring one of the boxes. I was like, shit, I brought both of them. Why did I do that?
You can't leave it in the hall. The UPS guy was good.
The UPS, the guy was really hungry.
Yeah, he was after it. He was after it. But you still, I mean, but you're a guy who draws too.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get off my lazy ass and pitch a show. This year, having been involved with so many folks over the years pitching their own shows and going into some pitches, like at Netflix, I've been asked, "Hey, do you have any ideas?" And I'm like, "Yes," because you should never say no.
Never say no.
And I'm driving home thinking, Frig, I got to think of like an idea right now.
So I make no, there's no pretension over here to being a performer.
Yes.
You know, I get to come on here and talk to people and that kind of stuff, but I certainly am, would not be the first guy you'd put in even into a scratch track.
Yes.
But in my own home.
Is there a job out of this? Am I going to get a job?
In my own home, I have a couple of really bad impressions.
Which
that I do.
Always become amazing original voices.
I'm already getting nervous just talking about this.
It's getting hot in here.
I use them when I read stories to my daughter at bedtime.
Cute.
And it occurred to me that maybe we might try something together.
You're gonna read me a bedtime story?
Well,
Yay!
I mean, everybody. So I've got like
40 Timbits. I'm telling you, that's what you got to do to get Mike to.
I'm rusty.
Okay.
I've probably got a Connery somewhere in me. I think most people do.
There's a Connery in all of us.
Most people have got the dog's name was Indiana. It's something in there.
We named we named the dog.
The dog Junior.
I've
got a really bad walk-in.
Which is a good walk-in.
Have you got a walk-in?
No.
You don't have a walk-in?
No, I don't. That's the word you have to say.
A terrible Christopher Walken.
40 Timbits right there. No one touched them.
So I've got a bad walk-in.
Very bizarre.
I've got a really bad Schwarzenegger that used to be pretty good when I was like 19.
But you dropped all the weight. You lost all the girth.
Put a few back on.
You're wearing all black. I like it.
It's very slim.
Yeah. If I wore a white shirt, I'd be like, ugh.
That's how I lost the weight in the first place. I wore nothing but white t-shirts for all summer.
Oh, cool.
Shamed myself.
Yeah. That's why I never tie my shoes, because you could see all the folds in my body. It's disgusting.
This is very educational. This one's an educational one today.
For all the animators, because I know all the animators out there are just like, this guy's funny. Ugh. I wash myself with a rag on a stick.
So I brought 2 books.
Okay. Are we allowed to show the covers of these books, or do we have to put duct
these
tape
are
on
classics.
them?
We're fine.
We put duct tape on them like my hat.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna make the attempt.
Sure.
So I like this. This one is the Walken.
Okay.
Llama Llama by Anna Dewdney.
And Goodnight Moon. That was the book, by the way. I didn't fart.
As told by Christopher Walken. I'm prepared to try this.
Yep.
But I'm also prepared to hand off at any given moment.
Okay. And it's my choice. Or
You do
would
whatever you want, man. I'm going
Or do you want me
walk-in,
to
that's
do
all I got.
walk-in? Okay.
I mean, we can go back and forth. We can trade walk-ins. You can do a page at a time.
I'm going to give you the walk-in. Look who's walking is what this part of
I'm gonna try this. Okay, so Llama Llama, Nighty Night, as terrible Christopher Walken. Dinner's over. Tummy fed. Llama Llama. Time for bed. Time to brush and fill the tub. Sorry, man. I'm trying.
It's when we lock eyes for me. Is
Time to splish and splash and scrub.
Very good.
You got one?
I like it.
Why don't you take over? You take over. Jump in.
PJ's on, then potty time. Choose a book with silly rhymes. It's my Morgan Freeman. If you're having trouble, snuggle in, turn out the light. Llama Llama, 99.
You know what I liked about your walk-in, by the way? Awesome. It's walk-in, but it was almost turning into Pete Puma from Looney Tunes. So I mean,
It does go a few places.
Yeah,
it's hard to control it.
No, I think it's awesome when you. I mean, clearly the cadence is there, and this is not about like
It's on that last line actually where it plays best. Llama.
Llama. Time for bed.
99.
Yeah, 99. Time for bed. But yeah, fantastic. I liked it.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the next book?
So the next book is best read.
You're stressing out over
Is
there.
best read as Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh wow.
Now, but Schwarzenegger has changed over the years.
Okay. Yeah.
Schwarzenegger, because
he's kind of mellowed out a little
But
bit.
the growl is part of it now. The growl wasn't part of the old Schwarzenegger. It was like Phil Hartman's Schwarzenegger was very different from the Schwarzenegger impression, like the Will Sasso.
Oh yeah.
Will Sasso was the one I think who changed the Schwarzenegger.
Who, by the way, if you are, he was big on Vine, Will Sasso.
Yes.
And you could find all of his Vine compilations, all of his like Schwarzenegger stuff of recent. It's so good.
It's amazing.
Him touring Canada.
Yeah, when they're up north.
Yeah. Oh man, it's worth a look.
It's in the Arctic.
Yeah.
Canada berries.
But that's that part wasn't there in the old days. That was never that thing was not part of the Arnold impression in the old days. Because like there's the best line, the worst and best Arnold Schwarzenegger line of all time comes from Raw Deal. Mm-hmm. Raw Deal is an early line when they're like trying to get him back into the mix, and they bring up an old case.
Yeah.
And it's and I think they had to teach it to him phonetically. I think he had to do it phonetically because it was really like asking him, Arnold at that time, to do this line.
Yeah.
And it's
But that's kind of like what made him part of. Like,
oh yeah,
who he
it
is.
was extraordinary. Extraordinary. But to ask Arnold Schwarzenegger to say, I'm gonna try it.
It's looking like it's taking a lot of your neck muscles.
It's hard.
too.
It's hard. He kidnapped a 9-year-old girl.
Oh, that's good.
He molested, murdered, and mutilated her. And it's just like it turns over at the end with this.
Oh my God! You're bleeding. No, I'm just kidding. It is a taxing
I told you it
voice.
was terrible. I was told you it was terrible. There was a time when I could do this, and I just can't anymore. But that being said, we do have Goodnight Moon to read.
Yes.
I'm sweating
I'm
too
not
much from
going to
this
do a
last
Schwarzenegger because clearly you've beaten me at that game.
Oh God, no.
I may do a Trump, or I may do.
You want to do a little Trump right
or
off the
Marvin
bat?
the Martian.
You want to
Trump? I feel like Trump is now the walk-in, or a Morgan Freeman. I feel like those are so now.
You lead in. You lead in.
Oh wow. Okay, I'll lead in.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get us rolling.
I'm gonna go with the guy on my hat that I drew, Marvin the Martian.
In the great green room, there was a telephone and a red balloon and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. Oh, the moon! It obstructs my view of Earth.
Perfect.
I'm going to blow it up. And there were 3 little bears sitting on chairs.
Here's the thing about bears, okay? They're very big, they're very furry. They got big claws, all right? They got giant claws. You got to get away from them. But in books, they're so adorable, all right? And the 2 little kittens, okay, these kittens, let me tell you, and a pair of mittens, because that rhymes. That's what you got to do. Kittens are notorious for mittens in the history of storybooks, all right? And a little toy house, a very tiny, tiny toy house, which is great because it makes my hands look huge. Huge. Right? That's why I get little tiny things in my office to make things look big, all right, my hands. And a young mouse, a very young mouse, who Who wants to look at an old mouse, all right? I love young mice, let me tell you.
And a comb and a brush and a bowl full of mush. And a quiet old lady who was whispering hush. Good night, room.
I'll go Fozzie Bear.
Ah, good night, cow jumping over the moon. Good night, light and the red balloon. Oh, I love red, Kermit. You know, it's a very comical color. Good night, bears. Good night, chairs. Good night, kittens, and good night, mittens. Good night, clocks, and good night, socks.
Good night, comb, and good night, brush. Thank you. See, I'm just calling it back for you.
I'm gonna ease it. I'm gonna ease you back. I'm gonna bring you back into the story.
And limber up a little over here.
You're back, Mr. Villican. You're fine. You take this one.
Good night, stars. Good night. Yeah. That wasn't bad. Good night, noises. Everywhere.
We did it. We did it.
Oh, you make it look so easy.
He didn't cry.
You make it
that's
look
all
so
you gotta do
easy.
is make sure you don't cry.